Welcome back to Movies TV Man. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Man, and welcome to my review of Spider-Man No Way Home. I can't even remember if I've already recorded another review and posted it after my first viewing. Well, today I went with my nephew again to see Spider-Man No Way Home for the second time. And because I find it hard to retain information and to remember everything about a movie, I think my impression of Spider-Man No Way Home was very different with its first viewing. But today, I had some clarity. Spider-Man No Way Home doesn't feel like it's made by the same people the first two movies were. And of course, it was. So what's different now? What is my clarity for this movie? Well, it reminds me of Smallville, where season 1 of Smallville was a very good season, but it was about laying foundations. So where before I didn't really have much love for Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, I get it now. Feige was building everything up. He was building the MCU Spider-Man up. He was laying the foundations, like Goff and Miller were laying the foundations for Smallville in season 1. And when you get to series 2, they introduced the Quatchy Caves and Jor-El. And there's a lot more going on in season 2, like with Christopher Reeve's Dr. Virgil Swan and Clark finding out about Kryptonite and where he was from. And this is what Spider-Man No Way Home does. I'm a very stubborn fan. And you know, I've been saying for years that Tobey Maguire will always be my Spider-Man, that Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 are way beyond better than the Spider-Man MCU. But I had a bit of clarity after watching Spider-Man No Way Home today after my second viewing. And now I kind of feel Tom Holland's my Spider-Man. That's strange, isn't it? This film has more emotion than most, if not all, MCU films I've ever watched. And that includes things like Captain America and the Winter Soldier, Avengers Infinity War, which is an amazing emotional film, as is Avengers Endgame with the death of Tony Stark. But this film had a lot of emotion to it. I have never been a fan of Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, but they fleshed her out so much better in this third movie. And so when it comes to that moment that she dies, I really feel it. It's probably because just recently as well, I lost my father just over a month ago. So maybe that is part of it. But I really felt it when she says, with great power comes great responsibility. I was a bit offended that she got that line, seeing it's Uncle Ben's line. But clearly the reason we don't have an Uncle Ben in the MCU is because this was the plan from Spider-Man Homecoming. They were always going to do a multiversal story. It's interesting how we get this evolution of Andy Garfield's Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, in this film. Tobey Maguire doesn't really have much of an evolution in this film. And let me explain to you why. He doesn't actually need one, because he evolved as a character throughout 3 films. He killed the man who killed his uncle accidentally, but he still killed him, as he explains to Tom Holland's Peter Parker in this movie when he stops him from killing Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I do feel out of the 3 movies that Tobey had, his character got all the evolution a character will ever need. But Tom Holland's Spider-Man got his evolution and got his kind of journey a lot more in this movie. Spider-Man No Way Home is really the Empire Strikes Back of the MCU. And I felt Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Peter Parker in this film. I felt him. And it's because, as I say, for me, this is the most emotional film. It was so good in so many different aspects. And I've never really been a big fan of Zendaya's MJ. But in this film, you saw what a great actress she is. Even Ned Leeds, who I thought is just a comedy sidekick, was so much better in this film. I promise, Peter, I won't turn on you. I won't become your enemy, when he finds out that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man's best friend turned on him and he died in his arms. And so I thought everyone had great, evolution. Like Jon Favreau's Happy. Jon Favreau is a great guy, multi-talented, a writer, director. He's been doing these things for years. But his performance as Happy was, to me, even better. There was a lot of comedy in this film. Some of it kind of dropped well, and some of it I didn't find particularly funny, but I know the kids love it. So this was a compelling, emotional movie. And I mean, when I first saw the film, I felt the first hour dragged, but I appreciated the first hour in this second viewing that I had, because without laying the foundations in that first hour, you can't really get to what you get to. Even the fact that we really have to wait to see Andy's and Tobey's Peter Parker versions of Peter Parker in this film for a long time. And what do we get? 20 minutes, half an hour of them? I think it's just right. When I first saw the film, I kind of thought maybe we should have got more. But it was very clear what they were doing here. This wasn't Andy Garfield's Peter Parker's movie. It wasn't Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker movie. It was Tom Holland. This was the movie that we really had to feel that this guy is Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. Even in the end, when he creates the kind of OG Spidey suit at the end. And it's like, as I say, they've been laying the foundations all this time. Before this film, I felt that in Captain America Civil War, that was the best version of Tom's Peter Parker we got. But in this film, they really did flesh him out, and he now feels like Spidey. And I am looking forward to the future adventures of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Now, Tom talks a lot. And it's amazing. He's even been told off by Marvel Studios and Sony so many times, like when he was saying this is a frightening movie. And they obviously don't want the kids to be frightened off, and I'm not going to watch this, a bit scary, as that was ever going to happen. But, again, you have to look at that, and Tom says, well, listen, emotionally, it is a frightening movie. He really goes through the mill. But what I love about this film, there are consequences. The theme of trying to control people's destiny. Tom Holland's Spidey really wants to control these villains' destiny and give them a second chance. Ultimately, he does. But the question underlines and unanswered in a lot of ways in this film, was it the right thing to do? After everything that happens, he saves them. We don't know what happens once they go back, if they die. I think I think all these characters will survive. I was also very surprised how much screen time Jamie Foxx's Electro had in this movie. And in a lot of ways, he was my favourite kind of, previous Spidey villain in Spider-Man No Way Home. I thought he was really funny, really cool. But the Sandman was really cool, and he got a lot more stuff than I thought he'd get. Let's not forget, this is the villain from Spider-Man 3, a film that many Spidey fans and critics hate to its core. I actually think he's the best thing about Spider-Man 3. And again, Flint Marko and the actor did a great job. Again, I was surprised they brought back the OG actor. Really good actor, really good job. I hope we see him again. Now the question is, what happens next? What happens to this Spider-Man? Tom Holland said that he doesn't even know if he's going to continue. I don't think after all that character work you can move away from Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It's impossible. The kids love him, and now after this movie, I love him. He feels like my Spider-Man, where before Tobey Maguire felt like my Spider-Man, and I'll be saying, this is my Spider-Man, this is always going to be my Spider-Man, and I'm never ever going to embrace Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But in this film, it was perfect. Feige really nailed Spider-Man No Way Home. Ultimately, as exciting as seeing Andy and Tobey as Spidey again in this film, it was really Tom Holland's character, Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, that came to the table, nailed it. It was brilliant. His performance was absolutely fantastic. and let's hope he's Spider-Man for a very long time to come. This has been Movies TV Mad and my Spider-Man No Way Home review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please comment, share, like. The likes are very important to get me seen on the algorithm. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell at the very top or the side or wherever it is. And remember, I'll be back tomorrow with more videos and the DCEU Daily. Until then, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.